Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. Please enter your host PIN when finished. Press the pound key.
To start your show now, press 1. If you're fortunate.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Coming at you live from the beautiful heartland of these good old United States of America, right at the confluence of the mighty Mississippi and the majestic Missouri rivers, St. Charles, Missouri. This is the Rant. I am your host, Charles Lamson. I'll be with you for the next 2 hours. All right, today's Saturday, 29th day of June, year of our Lord 2019. Today's big topic. That's right, it's part 8 of, that's right, part 8 of The Planning Pays, Economics and Personal Finance. First half of the big show. Going to be using my spirits as a dark necromancer. My power as to summon the spirits. Using the power, using necromancy and black magic rituals and creepy Tibetan bull music to once again summon geniuses from the past to help us in these times of political and economic uncertainty and turmoil. Today, this is part 8. So, and sticking with the theme of economics and personal finance and what have you, we're going to be channeling the spirits of. We're going to have a little seance. That's right, and we're going to go back about 130 years or so, and we're going to. Well, he died. Alfred Marshall died in 1920. So anyway, we're going to try to travel back in time and summon his spirit. A little bit of both. I think he's got like a whole team of mediums over there ready to help channel his spirit to reach across the veil. We're going to do, and he's going to talk about principles of economics. That's right. And then after the second half of the show, I'm going to come back and we're going to jump in the magical, mystical Lamson time machine, and we're going to talk about personal financial planning. Okay, more precisely, we're going to start off talking about why buy life insurance. And I know you're probably thinking, oh shit, he's going to try and sell us stuff. No, I'm not. This is a service I do to build goodwill. I'm not trying to sell you anything, I promise. I do get a little ad revenue from my Blog Talk radio show. Yeah, by the way, I'm doing a weird sort of simulcast, triple cast type thing. It's all going on the blog as well. charleslanson.blogspot.com. I'm bringing back my the YouTube channel, and while I'm doing a Blog Talk Radio show as well, all at the same time. And those of you who are regular listeners of the show know that, during the first half of the show, I channel spirits of dead guys, dead geniuses from the past to help give us some guidance and stuff to talk about in the second half of the show. What you might not know is usually while the spirits are taking over in the first half of the show and they're sharing their wisdom from beyond the grave, I'm a proactive guy. I'm usually over here working out. Believe it, I find that a great time to exercise. So I figured, oh man, this will work out great for the YouTube crowd out there, because now I can sort of I can sort of combine exercising into this whole thing and create just a jumbled mass of genres here, and we're gonna have a little. I'm gonna show you how a crippled guy works out. Now, and I'm 50 years old as well, so you got to keep in mind I work out very lightweight. I use a 10-pound therapeutic bar, as you'll see, and I usually go for about a good 45 minutes. I do sets, and then between sets, I count my breaths to 30, so it's about 60 seconds in between sets, and I keep that up for about a good 45, 50 minutes. When I get done with that, I come back and I do the second half of the show. So it's also a good workout, inspirational type show as well. The show has it all, ladies and gentlemen. And, I'm a triple threat, basically. Okay, anyway. All right, so let's go ahead and begin with the big show. Like I said, this is the first show that I've say the first time I've done this. I did this a lot in the past. But this will be the first time I've done sort of a simulcast, triple cast type thing in a while. So you're going to have to bear with me. It'll be a little rough in this first show. But hey, let's do it. All right. So, hello? Alfred Marshall, are you there? Hello? Please, we need your guidance. Hello?
Wheat farmers in such a country as England is not exactly on the same footing as the diminishing return to an inappropriate investment of their resources by indiscreet farmers or manufacturers in a disproportionately large number of ploughs or planing machines. It is true that when the tendency to diminishing return is generalized, the return is apt to be expressed in terms of value and not of quantity. It must, however, be conceded that the older method of measuring return in terms of quantity often jostled against the difficulty of rightly interpreting a dose of labour and capital without the aid of a money measure, and that, though helpful for a broad preliminary survey, it cannot be carried very far. But even the recourse to money fails us if we want to bring to a common standard the productiveness of lands in distant times or places, and we must then fall back on rough and more or less arbitrary modes of measurement, which make no aim at numerical precision, but will yet suffice for the broader purposes of history. We have to take account of the facts that there are great variations in the relative amounts of labour and capital in a dose, and that interest on capital is generally a much less important item in backward than in advanced stages of agriculture, in spite of the fact that the rate of interest is generally much lower in the latter. For most purposes, it is probably best to take as a common standard a day's unskilled labour of given efficiency. We thus regard the dose as made up of so much labour of different kinds, and such charges for the use and replacement of capital as will together make up the value of, say, 10 days such labour. the relative proportions of these elements and their several values in terms of such labour being fixed according to the special circumstances of each problem. Footnote. The labour part of the dose is of course current agricultural labour. The capital part is itself also the product of labour in past times rendered by workers of many kinds and degrees, accompanied by waiting. End of footnote. A similar difficulty is found in comparing the returns obtained by labour and capital applied under different circumstances. So long as the crops are of the same kind, the quantity of one return can be measured off against that of another. But when they are of different kinds, they cannot be compared till they are reduced to a common measure of value. When, for instance, it is said that land would give better returns to the capital and labour expended on it with one crop or rotation of crops than with another, the statement must be understood to hold only on the basis of the prices at the time. In such a case, we must take the whole period of rotation together, assuming the land to be in the same condition at the beginning and the end of the rotation, and counting on the one hand all the labour and capital applied during the whole period, and on the other the aggregate returns of all the crops. It must be remembered that the return due to a dose of labour and capital is not here taken to include the value of the capital itself. For instance, if part of the capital on a farm consists of 2-year-old oxen, then the returns to a year's labour and capital would include not the full weight of these oxen at the end of the year, but only the addition that has been made to it during that year. Again, when a farmer is said to work with a capital of £10 to the acre, this includes the value of everything that he has on the farm. But the total volume of the doses of labour and capital applied to a farm during, say, a year does not include the whole value of the fixed capital, such as the machinery and horses, but only the value of their use after allowing for interest, depreciation and repairs, though it does include the whole value of the circulating capital, such as seed. The above is the method of measuring capital generally adopted, and it is to be taken for granted if nothing is said to the contrary. But another method is more suitable occasionally. Sometimes it is convenient to speak as though all the capital applied were of circulating capital, applied at the beginning of the year or during it, and in that case, everything that is on the farm at the end of the year is part of the produce. Thus, young cattle are regarded as a sort of raw material which is worked up in the course of time into fat cattle ready for the butcher. The farm implements may even be treated in the same way, their value at the beginning of the year being taken as so much circulating capital applied to the farm, and at the end of the year as so much produce. This plan enables us to avoid a good deal of repetition of conditioning clauses as to depreciation, etc., and to save the use of words in many ways. It is often the best plan for general reasonings of an abstract character, particularly if they are expressed in a mathematical form. The law of diminishing return must have occupied thoughtful men in every densely peopled country. It was first stated clearly by Turgot, Oeuvre, Édition d'Air, Book 1, pages 420 to 21, as Professor Cannon has shown, and its chief applications were developed by Ricardo. End of chapter 3. Chapter 4 of Principles of Economics, Book 4. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by IC Jumbo. Principles of Economics, Book 4 by Alfred Marshall. Chapter 4, The Growth of Population. Section 1. The production of wealth is but a means to the sustenance of man, to the satisfaction of his wants, and to the development of his activities, physical, mental, and moral. But man himself is the chief means of the production of that wealth of which he is the ultimate aim. And this, and the 2 following chapters, will be given to some study of the supply of labour, i.e. of the growth of population in numbers, in strength, in knowledge, and in character. In the animal and vegetable world, the growth of numbers is governed by the tendency of individuals to propagate their species on the one hand, and on the other hand by the struggle for life which thins out the young before they arrive at maturity. In the human race alone, the conflict of these 2 opposing forces is complicated by other influences. On the one hand, regard for the future induces many individuals to control their natural impulses, sometimes with the purpose of worthily discharging their duties as parents, sometimes, as for instance at Rome under the Empire, for mean motives. And on the other hand, society exercises pressure on the individual by religious, moral, and legal sanctions, sometimes with the object of quickening, and sometimes with that of retarding the growth of population. The study of the growth of population is often spoken of as though it were a modern one, but in a more or less vague form it has occupied the attention of thoughtful men in all ages of the world. To its influence, often unavowed, sometimes not even clearly recognised, we can trace a great part of the rules, customs, and ceremonies that have been enjoined in the Eastern and Western world by lawgivers, by moralists, and those nameless thinkers whose far-seeing wisdom has left its impress on national habits. Among vigorous races, and in times of great military conflict, they aimed at increasing the supply of males capable of bearing arms, and in the higher stages of progress they have inculcated a great respect for the sanctity of human life. But in the lower stages they have encouraged and even compelled the ruthless slaughter of the infirm and the aged, and sometimes a certain proportion of female children. In ancient Greece and Rome, with the safety valve of the power of planting colonies, and in the presence of constant war, an increase in the number of citizens was regarded as a source of public strength, and marriage was encouraged by public opinion, and in many cases even by legislation, though thoughtful men were even then aware that action in the contrary sense might be necessary if the responsibilities of parentage should ever cease to be burdensome. Footnote. Thus, Aristotle, in Politics, Book 2, Chapter 6, objects to Plato's scheme for equalizing property and abolishing poverty on the ground that it would be unworkable unless the state exercised a firm control over the growth of numbers. And, as Jowett points out, Plato himself was aware of this. See Laws, verse 740. Also Aristotle, Politics, Book 7, Section 16. The opinion formerly held that the population of Greece declined from the 7th century BC, and that of Rome from the 3rd, has recently been called in question. See Die Bevölkerung des Altertums by Edward Meyer in the Handwörterbuch der Staatswissenschaften. End of footnote. In later times, there may be observed, as Rocher says, a regular ebb and flow of the opinion that the state should encourage the growth of numbers. It was in full flow in England under the first 2 Tudors, but in the course of the 16th century it slackened and turned, and it began to ebb when the abolition of the celibacy of the religious orders and the more settled state of the country had had time to give a perceptible impetus to population, the effective demand for labour having meanwhile been diminished by the increase of sheep runs, and by the collapse of that part of the industrial system which had been organised by the monastic establishments. Later on, the growth of the population was checked by that rise in the standard of comfort which took effect in the general adoption of wheat as the staple food of Englishmen during the first half of the 18th century. At that time, there were even fears, which later inquiries showed to be unfounded, that the population was actually diminishing. Petty had forestalled some of Carey's and Wakefield's arguments as to the advantages of a dense population. Footnote. He argues that Holland is richer than it appears to be relatively to France, because its people have access to many advantages that cannot be had by those who live on poorer land, and are therefore more scattered. Quote, rich land is better than coarse land of the same rent. End of quote. Political Arithmetic, Chapter 1. End of footnote. Child had argued that whatever tends to the depopulating of a country tends to the impoverishment of it, and that most nations in the civilized parts of the world are more or less rich or poor proportionably to the paucity or plenty of their people, and not to the sterility or fruitfulness of their land. Footnote. Discourses on Trade, Chapter 10, Harris. Essay on Coins, pages 32 and 3, argues to a similar effect, and proposes to encourage matrimony among the lower classes by giving some privileges to those who have children, etc. End of footnote. And by the time that the world struggle with France had attained its height, when the demands for more and more troops were ever growing, and when manufacturers were wanting more men for their new machinery, the bias of the ruling classes was strongly flowing in favour of an increase of population. So far did this movement of opinion reach that in 1796 Pitt declared that a man who had enriched his country with a number of children had a claim on its assistance. An act passed amid the military anxieties of 1806, which granted exemptions from taxes to the fathers of more than 2 children born in wedlock, was repealed as soon as Napoleon had been safely lodged in St. Helena. Footnote. Let us, said Pitt, make relief, in cases where there are a large number of children, a matter of right and an honour, instead of a ground for opprobrium and contempt. This will make a large family a blessing and not a curse, and this will draw a proper line of distinction between those who are able to provide for themselves by labour, and those who, after having enriched their country with a number of children, have a claim on its assistance for their support. Of course, he desired to discourage relief where it was not wanted. Napoleon I had offered to take under his own charge one member of any family which contained 7 male children, and Louis XIV, his predecessor in the slaughter of men, had exempted from public taxes all those who married before the age of 20 or had more than 10 legitimate children. A comparison of the rapid increase in the population of Germany with that of France was a chief motive of the order of the French Chamber in 1885 that education and board should be provided at the public expense for every 7th child in necessitous families. And in 1913 a law was passed giving bounties under certain conditions to parents of large families. The British Budget Bill of 1909 allowed a small abatement of income for fathers of families. End of footnote. Section 2. But during all this time, there had been a growing feeling among those who thought most seriously on social problems that an inordinate increase of numbers, whether it strengthened the state or not, must necessarily cause great misery, and that the rulers of the state had no right to subordinate individual happiness to the aggrandizement of the state. In France in particular, a reaction was caused, as we have seen, by the cynical selfishness with which the court and its adherents sacrificed the well-being of the people for the sake of their own luxury and military glory. If the humane sympathies of the physiocrats had been able to overcome the frivolity and harshness of the privileged classes of France, the 18th century would probably not have ended in tumult and bloodshed, the march of freedom in England would not have been arrested, and the dial of progress would have been more forward than it is by the space of at least a generation. As it was, but little attention was paid to Quesnay's guarded but forcible protest. One should aim less at augmenting the population than at increasing the national income, for the condition of greater comfort which is derived from a good income is preferable to that in which a population exceeds its income and is ever in urgent need of the means of subsistence. Footnote. The physiocratic doctrine with regard to the tendency of population to increase up to the margin of subsistence may be given in Turgot's words. The employer, since he has always his choice of a great number of working men, will choose that one who will work most cheaply. Thus, then, the workers are compelled by mutual competition to lower their price. And with regard to every kind of labour, the result is bound to be reached, and it is reached as a matter of fact, that the wages of the worker are limited to that which is necessary to procure his subsistence. Sur la formation et la distribution des richesses, section 6. Similarly, Sir James Stewart says, Inquiry, Book 1, Chapter 3, the generative faculty resembles a spring loaded with a weight, which always exerts itself in proportion to the diminution of resistance. When food has remained some time without augmentation or diminution, generation will carry numbers as high as possible. If then food comes to be diminished, the spring is overpowered. The force of it becomes less than nothing. Inhabitants will diminish at least in proportion to the overcharge. If, on the other hand, food be increased, the spring which stood at 0 will begin to exert itself in proportion as the resistance diminishes. People will begin to be better fed. They will multiply, and in proportion as they increase in numbers, the food will become scarce again. Sir James Stewart was much under the influence of the physiocrats, and was indeed in some respects imbued with continental rather than English notions of government, and his artificial schemes for regulating population seem very far off from us now. See his Inquiry, Book 1, Chapter 12, of the great advantage of combining well-digested theory and a perfect knowledge of facts with the practical part of government in order to make a people multiply. End of footnote. Adam Smith said but little on the question of population, for indeed he wrote at one time of the culminating points of the prosperity of the English working classes, but what he does say is wise and well balanced and modern in tone. Accepting the physiocratic doctrine as his basis, he corrected it by insisting that the necessaries of life are not a fixed and determined quantity, but have varied much from place to place and time to time, and may vary more. But he did not work out this hint fully, and there was nothing to lead him to anticipate the second great limitation of the physiocratic doctrine, which has been made prominent in our time by the carriage of wheat from the centre of America to Liverpool for less than what had been the cost of its carriage across England. The 18th century wore on to its close, and the next century began. Year by year, the condition of the working classes in England became more gloomy. An astonishing series of bad harvests, a most exhausting war, and a change in the methods of industry that dislocated old ties, combined with an injudicious poor law to bring the working classes into the greatest misery they have ever suffered, at all events since the beginning of trustworthy records of English social history. Footnotes. For the bad harvests. The average price of wheat in the decades 1771 to 1780, in which Adam Smith wrote, was 34 shillings and 7 pence. In 1781 to 1790, it was 37 shillings and a penny. In 1791 to 1800, it was 63 shillings and 6 pence. In 1801 to 1810, it was 83 shillings and 11 pence. And in 1811 to 1820, it was 87 shillings and 6 pence. For the exhausting war. Early in the last century, the imperial taxes, for the greater part war taxes, amounted to 1/5 of the whole income of the country, whereas now they are not much more than 1/20, and even of this a great part is spent on education and other benefits which government did not then afford. End of footnotes. And to crown all, well-meaning enthusiasts, chiefly under French influence, were proposing communistic schemes which would enable people to throw on society the whole responsibility for rearing their children. Footnote. Especially Godwin in his Inquiry concerning Political Justice of 1792. It is interesting to compare Malthus's criticism of this essay with Aristotle's comments on Plato's Republic. End of footnote. Thus, while the recruiting sergeant and the employer of labour were calling for measures tending to increase the growth of population, more far-seeing men began to inquire whether the race could escape degradation if the numbers continued long to increase as they were then doing. Of these inquirers, the chief was Malthus, and his Essay on the Principle of Population is the starting point of all modern speculations on the subject. Section 3. Malthus's reasoning consists of 3 parts, which must be kept distinct. The first relates to the supply of labour. By a careful study of facts, he proves that every people of whose history we have a trustworthy record has been so prolific that the growth of its numbers would have been rapid and continuous if it had not been checked either by a scarcity of the necessaries of life or some other cause, that is, by disease, by war, by infanticide, or lastly by voluntary restraint. His second position relates to the demand for labour. Like the first, it is supported by facts, but by a different set of facts. He shows that up to the time at which he wrote, no country, as distinguished from a city such as Rome or Venice, had been able to obtain an abundant supply of the necessaries of life after its territory had become very thickly peopled. The produce which nature returns to the work of man is her effective demand for population, and he shows that, up to this time, a rapid increase in population, when already thick, had not led to a proportionate increase in this demand. Footnote. But many of his critics suppose him to have stated his position much less unreservedly than he did. They have forgotten such passages as this. From a review of the state of society in former periods compared with the present, I should certainly say that the evils resulting from the principle of population have rather diminished than increased, even unto the disadvantage of an almost total ignorance of their real cause. And if we can indulge the hope that this ignorance will be gradually dissipated, it does not seem unreasonable to hope that they will be still further diminished. The increase of absolute population, which will of course take place, will evidently tend but little to weaken this expectation, as everything depends on the relative proportions between population and food, and not on the absolute number of the people. In the former part of this work, it appeared that the countries which possessed the fewest people often suffered the most from the effects of the principle of population. Essay, Book 4, Chapter 12. End of footnote. Thirdly, he draws the conclusion that what had been in the past was likely to be in the future, and that the growth of population would be checked by poverty or some other cause of suffering unless it were checked by voluntary restraint. He therefore urges people to use this restraint, and while leading lives of moral purity, to abstain from very early marriages. Footnote. In the first edition of his essay, 1798, Malthus gave his argument without any detailed statement of facts, though from the first he regarded it as needing to be treated in direct connection with a study of facts, as is shown by his having told Prime, who afterwards became the first professor of political economy at Cambridge, that this theory was first suggested to his mind in an argumentative conversation which he had had with his father on the state of some other countries. Prime's Recollections, page 66. American experience showed that the population, if unchecked, would double at least once in 25 years. He argued that a doubled population might, even in a country as thickly peopled as England was, with its 7 million inhabitants, conceivably, though not probably, double the subsistence raised from the English soil, but that labour doubled again would not suffice to double the produce again. Let us then take this for our rule, though certainly far beyond the truth, and allow that the whole produce of the island might be increased every 25 years, that is, with every doubling of the population, by a quantity of subsistence equal to that which it at present produces. Or, in other words, in an arithmetical progression. His desire to make himself clearly understood made him, as Wagner says in his excellent introduction to the study of population, Grundlagen, edition 3, page 453, put too sharp a point on his doctrine and formulate it too absolutely. Thus he got into the habit of speaking of production as capable of increasing in an arithmetical ratio, and many writers think that he attached importance to the phrase itself, whereas it was really only a short way of stating the utmost that he thought any reasonable person could ask him to concede. What he meant, stated in modern language, was that the tendency to diminishing return, which is assumed throughout his argument, would begin to operate sharply after the produce of the island had been doubled. Doubled labour might give doubled produce, but quadrupled labour would hardly treble it. Octupled labour would not quadruple it. In the second edition, 1803, he based himself on so wide and careful a statement of facts as to claim a place among the founders of historical economics. He softened and explained away many of the sharp points of his old doctrine, though he did not abandon, as was implied in earlier editions of this work, the use of the phrase arithmetical ratio. In particular, he took a less despondent view of the future of the human race, and dwelt on the hope that moral restraint might hold population in check, and that vice and misery, the old checks, might thus be kept in abeyance. Francis Place, who was not blind to his many faults, wrote in 1822 an apology for him, excellent in tone and judgment. Good accounts of his work are given in Bonnar's Malthus and His Work, Cannon's Production and Distribution, and Nicholson's Political Economy, Book 1, Chapter 12. End of footnote. His position with regard to the supply of population, with which alone we are directly concerned in this chapter, remains substantially valid. The changes which the course of events has introduced into the doctrine of population relate chiefly to the second and third steps of his reasoning. We have already noticed that the English economists of the earlier half of the last century overrated the tendency of an increasing population to press upon the means of subsistence, and it was not Malthus's fault that he could not foresee the great developments of steam transport by land and by sea, which have enabled Englishmen of the present generation to obtain the products of the richest lands of the earth at comparatively small cost. But the fact that he did not foresee these changes makes the second and third steps of his arguments antiquated in form, though they are still in a great measure valid in substance. It remains true that unless the checks on the growth of population in force at the end of the 19th century are on the whole increased, they are certain to change their form in places that are as yet imperfectly civilized, it will be impossible for the habits of comfort prevailing in Western Europe to spread themselves over the whole world and maintain themselves for many hundred years. But of this more hereafter. Footnote. Taking the present population of the world at 1,500 millions, and assuming that its present rate of increase, about 8 per thousand annually, see Ravenstein's paper before the British Association in 1890, will continue, we find that in less than 200 years it will amount to 6,000 millions, or at the rate of about 200 to the square mile of fairly fertile land. Ravenstein reckons 28 million square miles of fairly fertile land, and 14 millions of poor grasslands. The first estimate is thought by many to be too high, but allowing for this, if the less fertile land be reckoned in for what it is worth, the result will be about 30 million square miles, as assumed above. Meanwhile, there will probably be great improvements in the arts of agriculture, and if so, the pressure of population on the means of subsistence may be held in check for about 200 years, but not longer. End of footnote. Section 4. The growth in numbers of a people depends firstly on the natural increase, that is, the excess of their births over their deaths, and secondly on migration. The number of births depends chiefly on habits relating to marriage, the early history of which is full of instruction. But we must confine ourselves here to the conditions of marriage in modern civilized countries. The age of marriage varies with the climate. In warm climates where childbearing begins early, it ends early. In colder climates, it begins later and ends later. But in every case, the longer marriages are postponed beyond the age that is natural to the country, the smaller is the birth rate. The age of the wife being, of course, much more important in this respect than that of the husband. Footnotes. On the age of childbearing, of course, the length of a generation has itself some influence on the growth of population. If it is 25 years in one place and 20 in another, and if in each place population doubles once in 2 generations during 1,000 years, the increase will be 1,000,000-fold in the first place, but 30,000,000-fold in the second. On the relative ages of husbands and wives. Dr. Ogle, in the Statistical Journal, volume 53, calculates that if the average age of marriage of women in England were postponed 5 years, the number of children to a marriage, which is now 4.2, would fall to 3.1. Korosi, basing himself on the facts of the relatively warm climate of Budapest, finds 18 to 20 the most prolific age for women, 24 to 26 that for men. But he concludes that a slight postponement of weddings beyond those ages is advisable mainly on the ground that the vitality of the children of women under 20 is generally small. End of footnotes. Given the climate, the average age of marriage depends chiefly on the ease with which young people can establish themselves and support a family according to the standard of comfort that prevails among their friends and acquaintances, and therefore it is different in different stations of life. In the middle classes, a man's income seldom reaches its maximum till he is 40 or 50 years old, and the expense of bringing up his children is heavy and lasts for many years. The artisan earns nearly as much at 21 as he ever does, unless he rises to a responsible post, but he does not earn much before he is 21. His children are likely to be a considerable expense to him till about the age of 15, unless they are sent into a factory, where they may pay their way at a very early age. And lastly, the labourer earns nearly full wages at 18, while his children begin to pay their own expenses very early. In consequence, the average age at marriage is highest among middle classes, it is low among the artisans, and lower still among the unskilled labourers. Footnote. The term marriage in the text must be taken in a wide sense so as to include not only legal marriages, but all those informal unions which are sufficiently permanent in character to involve, for several years at least, the practical responsibilities of married life. They are often contracted at an early age, and not infrequently lead up to legal marriages after the lapse of some years. For this reason, the average age at marriage in the broad sense of the term, with which alone we are here concerned, is below the average age at legal marriage. The allowance to be made on this head for the whole of the working classes is probably considerable, but it is very much greater in the case of unskilled labourers than of any other class. The following statistics must be interpreted in the light of this remark, and of the fact that all English industrial statistics are vitiated by the want of sufficient care in the classification of the working classes in our official returns. The Registrar General's 49th Annual Report states that in certain selected districts, the returns of marriages for 1884 to 5 were examined with the following results. The number after each occupation being the average age of bachelors in it at marriage, and the following number, in brackets, being the average age of spinsters who married men of that occupation. Minors, 24.06, their wives 22.46. Textile hands, 24.38, their wives 23.43. Shoemakers and tailors, 24.92, their wives 24.31, artisans 25.35, their wives 23.70, labourers 25.56, their wives 23.66, commercial clerks 26.25, their wives 24.43, shopkeepers and shopmen 26.67, their wives 24.22, farmers and sons 29.23, their wives 26.91, professional and independent class 31.22, their wives 26.40. Dr. Ogle, in the paper already referred to, shows that the marriage rate is greatest generally in those parts of England in which the percentage of those women between 15 and 25 years of age who are industrially occupied is the greatest. This is no doubt due, as he suggests, partly to the willingness of men to have their money incomes supplemented by those of their wives, but it may be partly due also to an excess of women of a marriageable age in those districts. End of footnote. Unskilled labourers, when not so poor as to suffer actual want, and not restrained by any external cause, have seldom, if ever, shown a lower power of increase than that of doubling in 30 years. That is, of multiplying 1,000,000-fold in 600 years, 1,000,000,000-fold in 1200, and hence it might be inferred a priori that their increase has never gone on without restraint for any considerable time. This inference is confirmed by the teaching of all history. Throughout Europe during the Middle Ages, and in some parts of it even up to the present time, unmarried labourers have usually slept in the farmhouse or with their parents, while a married pair have generally required a house for themselves. When a village has as many hands as it can well employ, the number of houses is not increased, and young people have to wait as best they can. There are many parts of Europe, even now, in which custom exercising the force of law prevents more than one son in each family from marrying. He is generally the eldest, but in some places the youngest. If any other son marries, he must leave the village. When great material prosperity and the absence of all extreme poverty are found in old-fashioned corners of the old world, the explanation generally lies in some such custom as this, with all its evils and hardships. Footnote. Thus, a village to the Valley Jachenau in the Bavarian Alps about 1880 found this custom still in full force. Aided by a great recent rise in the value of their woods, with regard to which they had pursued a far-seeing policy, the inhabitants lived prosperously in large houses, the younger brothers and sisters acting as servants in their old homes or elsewhere. They were of a different race from the workpeople in the neighbouring valleys, who lived poor and hard lives, but seemed to think that the Jachenau purchased its material prosperity at too great a cost. End of footnote. It is true that the severity of this custom may be tempered by the power of migration, but in the Middle Ages the free movement of the people was hindered by stern regulations. The free towns, indeed, often encouraged immigration from the country, but the rules of the guilds were in some respects almost as cruel to people who tried to escape from their old homes as were those enforced by the feudal lords themselves. Section 5. In this respect, the position of the hired agricultural labourer has changed very much. The towns are now always open to him and his children, and if he betakes himself to the New World, he is likely to succeed better than any other class of emigrants. But on the other hand, the gradual rise in the value of land and its growing scarcity is tending to check the increase of population in some districts in which the system of peasant properties prevails, in which there is not much enterprise for opening out new trades or for emigration, and parents feel that the social position of their children will depend on the amount of their land. They incline to limit artificially the size of their families and to treat marriage very much as a business contract, seeking always to marry their sons to heiresses. Francis Galton pointed out that, Though the families of English peers are generally large, the habits of marrying the eldest son to an heiress who is presumably not of a fertile stock, and sometimes dissuading younger sons from marriage, have led to the extinction of many peerages. Similar habits among French peasants, combined with their preference for small families, keep their numbers almost stationary. On the other hand, there seem to be no conditions more favourable to the rapid growth of numbers than those of the agricultural districts of new countries. Land is to be had in abundance. Railways and steamships carry away the produce of the land and bring back, in exchange, implements of advanced types, and many of the comforts and luxuries of life. The farmer, as the peasant proprietor is called in America, finds therefore that a large family is not a burden, but an assistance to him. He and they live healthy out-of-door lives. There is nothing to check, but everything to stimulate the growth of numbers. The natural increase is aided by immigration, and thus, in spite of the fact that some classes of the inhabitants of large cities in America are, it is said, reluctant to have many children, the population has increased 16-fold in the last 100 years. Footnote. The extreme prudence of peasant proprietors under stationary conditions was noticed by Malthus. See his account of Switzerland, Essay, Book 2, Chapter 5. Adam Smith remarked that poor Highland women frequently had 20 children, of whom not more than 2 reached maturity. Wealth of Nations, Book 1, Chapter 8. And the notion that want stimulated fertility was insisted on by Doubleday, True Law of Population. See also Sadler, Law of Population. Herbert Spencer seemed to think it probable that the progress of civilization will of itself hold the growth of population completely in check. But Malthus's remark that the reproductive power is less in barbarous than in civilized races has been extended by Darwin to the animal and vegetable kingdom generally. Mr. Charles Booth, Statistical Journal 1893, has divided London into 27 districts, chiefly registration districts, and arranged them in order of poverty, of overcrowding, of high birth rate, and of high death rate. He finds that the 4 orders are generally the same. The excess of birth rate over death rate is lowest in the very rich and the very poor districts. The birth rate in England and Wales is nominally diminishing at about an equal rate in both town and country. But the continuous migration of young persons from rural to industrial areas has considerably depleted the ranks of young married women in the rural districts, and, when allowance is made for this fact, we find that the percentage of births to women of childbearing age is much higher in them than in the towns, as is shown by the following table published by the Registrar General in 1907. The urban part of the table is headed 20 large towns with an aggregate population of 9,742,404 persons at the date of the census of 1901. The table compares the rate of increase of population as time goes by. The first comparison is calculated on the total population. In 1870 to 72, population grew by 36.7 per thousand people. In 1880 to 82, population grew by 35.7, which as a percentage of the 1870 to 72 figure is 97.3. In 1890 to 92, population grew by 32 per thousand, 87.2% of the 1870 to 72 figure. In 1900 to 1902, population grew by 29.8 per thousand, which is 81.2% of the 70 to 72 figure. When calculated on the female population aged 15 to 45 years, population increase goes as follows. In 1870 to 72, population grew by 143.1 per thousand people. In 1880 to 82, population grew by 140.6, which is a 98.3% of this 70 to 72 figure. In 1890 to 92, population grew by 124.6 per thousand, which is 87.1% of the 70 to 72 figure. And in 1900 to 1902, population grew by 111.4 per thousand, which is 77.8% of the 70 to 72 figure. The second part of the table deals with rural districts. 112 entirely rural registration districts with an aggregate population of 1,330,319 persons at the date of the census of 1901. The first set of figures is calculated on the total population. In 1870 to 72, the population grew by 31.6 per thousand individuals. In 1880 to 82, population grew by 30.3 individuals per thousand, which is 95.9% of the 1870 to 72 figure. In 1890 to 92, population grew by 27.8 individuals per thousand, which is 88.0% of the 70 to 72 figure. In 1900 to 1902, population grew by 26.0 individuals per thousand, which is 82.3% of the 70 to 72 figure. When calculated on the female population aged 15 to 45 years, we have the following figures. 1870 to 72, population grew by 158.9 per thousand individuals. In 1880 to 82, population grew by 153.5 per thousand individuals, which is 96.6% of the 70 to 72 figure. In 1890 to 92, population grew by 135.6, which is 85.3% of the 70 to 72 figure. And in 1900 to 1902, population grew by 120.7, which is 76% of the 1870 to 72 figure. End of the table. The movements of the population of France have been studied with exceptional care, and the great work on the subject by Levasseur, La Population Française, is a mine of valuable information as regards other nations besides France. Montesquieu, reasoning perhaps rather a priori, accused the law of primogeniture, which ruled in his time in France, of reducing the number of children in a family, and Laplace brought the same charge against the law of compulsory division. Levasseur calls attention to the contrast, and notes that Malthus's expectations of the effect of the civil code on population were in harmony with Montesquieu's rather than Laplace's diagnosis. But in fact, the birth rate varies much from one part of France to another. It is generally lower where a large part of the population owns land than where it does not. If, however, the departments of France be arranged in groups in ascending order of the property left at death, valeur successorale par tête d'habitant, the corresponding birth rate descends almost uniformly, being 23 per 100 married women between 15 and 50 years for the 10 departments in which the property left is between 48 and 57 francs, and 13.2 for the Seine, where it is 412 francs. And in Paris itself, the arrondissements inhabited by the well-to-do show a smaller percentage of families with more than 2 children than the poorer arrondissements show. There is much interest in the careful analysis which Levasseur gives of the connection between economic conditions and birth rate. His general conclusion being that it is not direct, but indirect, through the mutual influence of the two on manners and the habit of life, mœurs. He appears to hold that, however much the decline in the numbers of the French relatively to surrounding nations may be regretted from the political and military points of view, there is much good mixed with the evil in its influences on material comfort and even social progress. End of footnote. On the whole, it seems proved that the birth rate is generally lower among the well-to-do than among those who make little expensive provision for the future of themselves and their families, and who live an active life, and that fecundity is diminished by luxurious habits of living. Probably it is also diminished by severe mental strain, that is to say, given the natural strength of the parents, their expectation of a large family is diminished by a great increase of mental strain. Of course, those who do high mental work have, as a class, more than the average of constitutional and nervous strength, and Galton has shown that they are not, as a class, unprolific. But they commonly marry late. Section 6. The growth of population in England has a more clearly defined history than that in the United Kingdom, and we shall find some interest in noticing its chief movements. The restraints on the increase of numbers during the Middle Ages were the same in England as elsewhere. In England, as elsewhere, the religious orders were a refuge to those for whom no establishment in marriage could be provided, and religious celibacy, while undoubtedly acting in some measure as an independent check on the growth of population, is in the main to be...
Okay, thank you, Alfred Marshall. All right, so Part 8, Principles of Economics by Alfred Marshall. So you'll definitely want to check out the next podcast, Part 9, but now is the part of the show where we jump in the magical, mystical lamps and time machine, fast forward 130 some odd years. I guess we're not fully fast forwarding. I got to get my metaphor straight here, my terminology straight. I mean, I got to figure out, am I doing a seance? If I'm doing a seance, I'm not really time traveling, am I? So, okay, anyway, I got to get this straightened out. Well, I mean, this is part, I don't know. I've been doing this show for, I don't know how long now, but it's a damn mess, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so yeah, I'd just like to point out once again, those of you who are listening to the show on Blog Talk Radio, I'm going back to my roots as a simulcaster, a YouTuber, simulcaster. Well, I don't know. It's been a while since I did any YouTube stuff. So, I don't know. I just figured, hey, it's about time, to start. I got in a little trouble a while back. I posted a crazy video about pedophiles. Turned out it pissed some people off. I don't know, but I was making fun of them. I don't know. I guess they didn't, they didn't think it was too damn funny, I guess. But hey, what are you gonna do, huh? All right, so moving on. So hey, here I am. So anyway, yeah, man, I was just off of YouTube for a couple years, and then I was just working on the blog Talk Radio. I was just working on the blog, which is I've been working exclusively on that, doing my writing, writing about economics, finance, business administration, marketing, communications with an emphasis in promotions. It's kind of writing about a lot of business type stuff. And if you want to check that out, that blog is charleslanson.blogspot.com. And let's see here. And that is what we're going to pick up right now, ladies and gentlemen. Why buy life insurance? Why? Okay, we're talking about personal finance here. Personal financial planning. It's very important. You either love this stuff or you hate it. I geek out on it. I love it. Love talking about personal finance. I I don't know. I just find it soothing. It's one of my things I really geek out on. I don't know. Just love it. And a lot of people do. Yeah, and other people think it's like watching paint dry. But hey, whatever. To each its own, right? Okay, why buy life insurance? Life insurance planning is an important part of every success. Oh, okay, shoot. Let me get my act together over here. Okay. That's right. I know. I'm operating on a shoestring budget over here, ladies and gents. Don't really have a fancy production value. Fancy production value is for cupcakes, all right? No, anyway, that's not really necessarily true. I just, I don't know. I'm a jerry rig type of guy. So, I mean, look at this. This is my. I do my blog talk radio show through my phone because I'm too cheap to buy a microphone. That's right. But it's not a matter of cheapness, though. I just, I buy a microphone. Sometimes, man, you buy a microphone and you buy all the expensive equipment, and it's just not that great. I don't know. I kind of like the wild feel of operating. Jerry rigging everything. It's just, it's different. I know, okay, it's cheap. I know it, but I don't know. I like doing it this way, so it's my style, man. All right, so anyway, why buy life insurance? Life insurance planning is an important part of every successful financial plan. Its primary purpose is to protect your dependents from financial loss in the event of your untimely death. In essence, it provides an umbrella. Oh, okay, by the way, I was just going to point out, I know those of you out there who are fitness Nazis, fitness freaks, are probably watching me work out, and we're probably going, "Oh my God, what the hell are you doing?" My form is horrible, I know, but you gotta bear in mind, I'm a cripple, I'm a gimp. My trunk muscles don't work that great, so I kind of do whatever I can. And also, you probably noticed I don't breathe a lot, especially when I was doing my trunk exercises, my little core exercises with that bar. I suck in a big lungs full of air, lungs full of air, and I do that, and I hold it for a reason because, like I said, I don't have a lot of trunk mobility, which were core strength. So when I suck in and I feel my lungs full of air, it actually gives my body stability. So that's why when I'm doing that, I go. Because when my lungs are like that, they're full of air, it gives me stability I otherwise would not have. So, does that make sense? All right, so you're starting to see why and so I know, you're supposed to breathe, in a perfect world, but as you can tell, for obvious, I don't live in that perfect of a world. So, but hey, what are you gonna do, right? I mean, I'm 50 years old, ain't gonna live that much long. I mean, what, live to about my 70s, 80s maybe. So, it's not that bad. All right. So anyway, all right. Why buy life insurance? Life insurance planning is an important part of every successful financial plan. Its primary purpose is to protect your dependents from financial loss in the event of your untimely death. In essence, okay, it's driving me crazy over here. Come on. In essence, why buy life insurance? I ask you for the 9 millionth time. Okay, in essence, it provides an umbrella of protection for your loved ones by protecting the assets you've built up during your life and providing funds to help your family reach important financial goals even after you die. So, you got the benefits of life insurance. In spite of its importance to sound financial planning, many people put off the decision to buy life insurance, in part because life insurance is associated with something unpleasant in many people's minds, namely death. People do not like to talk about death or the things closely associated with it, so they often put off considering their life insurance needs. Life insurance is also intangible. You cannot see, smell, taste, or touch its benefits. And those benefits mainly happen after you have died. However, life insurance does have very important benefits that should not be ignored in the financial planning process. Okay, yeah, by the way, I just want to, okay, yeah, for, I guess, YouTubers, okay, we're not going live right now on YouTube, but if you want to call in, caller lines are wide open, by the way. For those of you listening on Blog Talk Live right now. So if you want to call in, be a part of the big show, please feel free. That number be 657 383 1825. 657 383 1825. We got about 50 minutes left in the big show. So caller line's wide open. So feel free to call in, and if you have any questions regarding personal finance, your insurance needs, what have you, just fire away. Or you have any recommendations for what direction you want the show to go in, you can do that as well. I aim to please. The benefits of life insurance include financial protection for dependents. If you have family or loved ones who depend on your income, what would happen to them after you die? Would they be able to maintain their current lifestyle, stay in your home, or afford a college education? Life insurance provides a financial cushion for your dependents, giving them a set amount of money after your death that they can use for many different purposes. For example, your spouse may use your life insurance proceeds to pay off the mortgage on your home so your family can continue to live there comfortably or set aside funds for your child's college education. In short, the most important benefit of life insurance is providing financial protection for your dependents after your death. Protection from creditors. A life insurance policy can be structured so that death benefits are paid directly to a named beneficiary rather than being considered as part of your estate. This means that even if you have outstanding bills and debts at the time of your death, creditors cannot claim the cash benefits from your life insurance policy, providing further financial protection for your dependents. Tax benefits. Life insurance proceeds paid to your heirs, as a rule, are not subject to state or federal income taxes. Further, if certain requirements are met, the policy proceeds can pass to named beneficiaries free of any estate taxes. Vehicle for savings. Some types of life insurance policies can serve as a savings vehicle, particularly for those who are looking for safety of principal. In particular, variable life policies are more investment vehicles than they are life insurance products. However, do not assume that all life insurance products can be considered savings instruments. The comparison is often inappropriate. Just like other aspects of personal financial planning, life insurance decisions can be made easier by following a step-by-step approach to answer the following questions. 1. Do you need life insurance? 2. If so, how much life insurance do you need? 3. Which type of life insurance is best given your financial objectives? 4. What factors should be considered in making the final purchase decision? Do you need life insurance? The first question to ask when considering the purchase of life insurance is if, in fact, you need it. Not everyone does. Many factors, including your personal situation and other financial resources, play a role in determining your need for life insurance. Remember, the major purpose of life insurance is to provide financial security for your dependents in the event of your death. Life insurance can also provide other benefits, but they are all a distant second to this primary reason for buying life insurance. Who needs life insurance? In general, life insurance should be considered if you have dependents counting on you for financial support. Therefore, a single adult who does not have children or other relatives to support may not need life insurance at all. Children also usually do not require insurance on their life. Once you marry, your life insurance requirements should be reevaluated depending on your spouse's earnings potential and assets, such as a house that you want to protect. So, the need for life insurance increases the most when children enter the picture, because young families stand to suffer the greatest financial hardship from the premature death of a parent. Even a non-wage earning parent may require some life insurance to assure that children will be adequately cared for if the parent died. As families build assets, their life insurance requirements continue to change, both in terms of the amount of insurance needed and the type of policy necessary to meet their financial objectives and protect their assets. Other life changes will also affect your life insurance needs. For example, if you divorce or your spouse dies, you may require additional life insurance to protect your children. In contrast, once your children finish school and are on their own, the need for life insurance may drop. In later years, the life insurance needs vary depending on the availability of other financial resources, such as pensions and investments, to provide for your dependents. Oh my God, ladies and gentlemen, I got a special treat live in studio. Oh my God, who could it be? Oh shit, here we go. That's right. Here we go. Ladies and gents. Oh shit. Wait a minute.
A crescendo, a nollie. I want to tell you guys the big enchilada.
Okay, please, the big
I have to
enchilada.
wear these headphones.
What do you know about aliens? Are aliens real?
This is really big. So,
Okay.
question is, what does Donald Trump know about aliens?
Oh yeah, what does he know now, right? Because he's in the office.
I don't know.
That would be the first thing I did. I would run to the office and I'd go, "Who's got the alien
Documents.
Who's got them?"
Let me give you my best, please, deep research approximation. Are you ready?
Yes.
I'm going to give you the big enchilada. Joe, there are
Yes.
aliens in this room right now.
For real?
Yeah, you're not of this world, bro.
Me?
You're the alien.
Oh, wow! I didn't know.
Well, here's what the elite believe. And let me be very clear because the video took this out of context. I only go with what I can prove.
Oh, thank you.
And people can't even handle that. There's armies. We're fighting a pedophile conspiracy. But beyond that, it's a vampire conspiracy in that they are interdimensionally sucking the essence of our youth.
Right.
And they believe they're possessed by an off-world entity.
They do?
Yeah, and then, Joe, I've been on air 22 years. I don't get into aliens, metaphysical, religion, any of that. I've studied the elite, and I've also communicated with a lot of the top people. And if you want to know, I will actually break down right now the best knowledge right now what's happening on the planet.
What's happening?
The elite are all about transcendence and living forever and the secrets of the universe, and they want to know all this. Some are good, some are bad, some are a mix. But the good ones don't ever want to organize. The bad ones tend to want to organize because they lust after power. Powerful consciousnesses don't want to dominate other people. They want to empower them, so they don't tend to get together until things are really late in the game. Then they come together. Evil's always defeated because good is so much stronger. And we're on this planet, and Einstein's physics showed it, Max Planck's physics showed it, there's at least 12 dimensions. And now that's why all the top scientists and billionaires are coming out saying it's a false hologram. It is artificial. The computers are scanning it and finding tension points where it's artificially projected and gravity's bleeding in to this universe. That's what they call dark matter. So we're like a thought or a dream that's a wisp in some computer program, some God's mind, whatever. They're proving it all. It's all coming out. Now, there's like this sub-transmission zone below the third dimension that's just turned over to the most horrible things is what it resonates to. And it's trying to get up into the third dimension that's just a basic level consciousness to launch into the next levels. And our species is already way up in the fifth, sixth dimension, consciously our best people. But there's this big war trying to like basically destroy humanity because humanity has free will and there's a decision to which level we want to go to. We have free will, so evil's allowed to come and contend, not just good. And the elites themselves believe they're racing using human technology to try to take our best minds and build some type of breakaway civilization where they're going to merge with machines, transcend, and break away from the failed species that is man, which is kind of like a false transmission because they're thinking what they are is ugly and bad, projecting it onto themselves instead of believing, no, it's a human test about building us up. And so Google was set up 18, 19 years ago. I knew about this before it was declassified. I'm just saying I have good sources, that they wanted to build a giant artificial system. And Google believes that the first artificial intelligence will be a supercomputer based on the neuron activities of the hive mind of humanity with billions of people wired into it with the Internet of Things. And so all of our thoughts go into it, and we're actually building a computer that has real neurons in real time that's also psychically connected to us, that are organic creatures, so that they will have current prediction powers, future prediction powers, a true crystal ball. But the big secret is once you have a crystal ball and know the future, you can add stimuli beforehand and make decisions that control the future. And so then it's the end of consciousness and free will for individuals, as we know, and a true 2.0 in a very bad way, hive mind consciousness with an AI jacked into everyone, knowing our hopes and dreams, delivering it to us, not in some PKD wirehead system where we plug in and give up on consciousness because of unlimited pleasure, but because we were already wired in and absorbed before we knew it by giving over our consciousness to this system by our daily decisions that it was able to manipulate and control into a larger system. There's now a human counterstrike taking place to shut this off before it gets fully into place and to block these systems and to try to have an actual debate about where humanity goes and cut off the pedophiles and psychic vampires that are in control of this AI system before humanity's destroyed.
How the pedophiles get in control of
AI?
AI?
The pedophiles at whatever level, the devil, whatever you want to call it, this interdimensional thing that gives them advanced off-world technology, the fallen one that's not in this world, is giving them advanced knowledge
What
on
are
how
you
to
talking
construct
about?
these systems
What
that
is
have
that?
already been used before on other populations.
What?
Is that Satan?
But what are you
That's
talking
Satan.
about?
Let's say,
Just you're
well,
saying
Satan
something
becomes
insane.
something that the stupid preacher tells you about who's totally controlled, or something you read about on in the news or TV.
Right.
But this is an interdimensional force that wants to influence us to build something that absorbs us and kills us, rather than the divine free will we're given to build something much better that empowers the species. So the species is now making a decision
Where are you
about
getting
its
this
entire
from?
future.
Where are you getting this from?
That's what it is.
But where are you getting it
I
from?
know from looking at all the data, researching it, studying it, watching the enemy. That's the big decision that humanity has now got before us. You get someplace finally in deep research where it's what every culture already said, what everybody already knew, what they're telling you in movies like Prometheus, what the elite admit in the New York Times they believe in. Everything they're doing points towards this. And then you read their own writings. They believe we're this ugly, fallen, ugly species. We're all to be killed. They're the rich billionaires who are better than us, and they're going to merge with machines and become gods and go to the next level. Here's what I'm telling you. The elite literally believe interdimensionally they were given this information and then built it. And here's the thing. They built it. And Google admits, even in data dumps to Wired 2 years ago, that they're building an AI that will end human consciousness, free will, and take over, and the next species will rise out of that. They built it. There's a centralized system of what they're building that isn't naturally occurring.
Who is that?
I mean, if you actually read what all the globalists say, they are getting not off-world, but interdimensional communications to then build this system that we see lowers our IQ, makes us live less. All the studies show screen time, all the computers, lowering IQs,
Right.
lowering fertility, lowering our health.
When you're talking about the elites and interdimensional signals that they're receiving that are telling us to lower our IQ, you can't just say
We
that.
need proof. Okay, let me give you proof.
That sounds so crazy, by the way.
What I'm telling you is that the globalists admit a lot of this. It's in a lot of their white papers, a lot of their reports. They believe they're going to become gods. The rest of us are profane and
Right,
don't
but all
get
that
to.
shit about interdimensional beings, giving them all the data.
They get the technology they believe from a freaking other dimension. That's what they believe. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's real. CNN's going to have me up here all clipped together. If you look at this, that's what I'm telling you. I don't believe it.
Okay.
I'm telling you, studying what the establishment believes, none of them are atheists. They all believe they're getting interdimensional stuff. So if you go back to Galton and Wedgwood and Huxley, if you go back to Darwin, he had an hallucination and believed he was given all this stuff from like demons. Darwin wrote this. These letters are public. You can read these online. They were all part of a secret breeding program where the British thought they would have like this superhuman if they bred these 6 families together to like create all this. Is like mainline British history. This is like, this is known in the whole eugenics history. Galton, who's related to all these other guys, in the 1850s, he starts having these ideas, and he says there's a double helix, which is the snakes for science and medicine. And he said, we're going to discover the keys and the building blocks to life. And he said it's going to be called biometrics, and we'll track everybody by reading their genetics. This is what Hitler freaked out about and picked up. So the media and the liberals give you this one thing, origin of the species, like, I'm not saying it's wrong or right. It's super heavy galactic stuff. They give this to you. This is only one little boiled down BS that we'd have. You go to what these guys really wrote. They were like intermarrying and involved in wicked seances and channeling and all this weird ass crap. And then they envisioned, okay, there's a double helix DNA discovered. Okay, biometrics. Okay, world government. Okay, computers. Okay, atomic weapons. Give me the equations. And they were like all then like going to other scientist meetings and go, we believe there's a program where you take different matter together in isotopes and it'll cause an explosion. They were like given, either humans are super advanced and already had this knowledge from somewhere else in our genetics, or it was given off world. But humans like have all this data compacted and compressed, ready like programs. There's an open rebellion against the criminals that hijacked our government. And so we overthrew the globalists and Obama, and now we're just overthrowing their whole system. There's a huge war going on. It's beautiful. We are kicking their ass on every front. This is 100% real. The energy level is just rising to an absolute cacophony, a crescendo, a finale, a coup de grace. Oh, it's a twilight of the gods, all right. These would-be gods of the New World Order. They're no gods at all. After no rook.
All right, thank you. Hey, I just blatantly ripped off Joe Rogan. Take that, Joe Rogan. I don't care. Okay. That's how I roll, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. I have no scruples, no integrity. Okay, I know my mission, my personal mission on my blog says that I live with integrity. Okay, I got to go back and read that personal mission again. It says something about integrity, the personal mission I created. So I'm not doing a very good job there. If I'm stealing from Joe Rogan and Alex Jones on my very first show back, I'm probably gonna get kicked off of YouTube now because I hope not. Well, I mean, I don't really have that many listeners or watchers, followers, whatever. But so I'm not making that many waves. But hell, who knows? I mean, they got pretty mad at me before, so I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. If that. So I know you're not supposed to play Alex Jones clips now. That's against the law, I guess. I guess that's what, against the law now? Yeah. So, all right. Holy Christ! What are you gonna do? Crazy times, ladies and gentlemen. Crazy times. My first show back, and I'm already being a bad boy. Being a rule-breaking bad boy. Okay, let's see here. I'm just a rebel, man. A rock and roll rebel, baby. All right, how to select life insurance. Okay, yeah, by the way, radio listeners, I'm once again doing a simulcast. If you're wondering who I'm talking to, why I'm describing stuff, I'm still trying to get it all straightened out here, so I'm trying to incorporate YouTube into my show again, and into the blog, so it's going to be one great synergistic feat of internet-based broadcasting, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so now, how to select a life insurance company. Selecting a life insurance company is an important part of shopping for life insurance. In addition to looking for a firm that provides reasonably priced products, attractive contract features, and good customer service, it is vital to consider the financial health of any insurance firm before buying a life insurance policy. You want to be certain that the company will be around and have the assets to pay your beneficiaries should you die. Even before you die, the financial stability of your insurance company is important. If the company fails, you may be forced to buy a new policy at less favorable rates. Okay, to narrow your choices, age and size are useful indicators. Unless a good reason exists to do otherwise, you should probably limit the companies you consider to those that have been doing business for 25 years or more, and that have annual premium value in excess of $50 million. Although these criteria will root out a lot of smaller firms, there will be plenty of companies left from which to choose. You may also find that one company is preferable for your term protection and another for your whole life needs. Factors to consider before making the final choice include the firm's reputation, financial history, commissions and other fees, and the specifics of their policy provisions. If you are choosing a company for a cash value life insurance policy, the company's investment performance and dividend history is also an important consideration. Dividend history is also an important consideration. What? Okay, I just repeated myself. Sorry about that. It's a poorly written sentence, I suppose, because I should have edited that a little bit better, huh? Maybe I should prepare before the big show. I don't know. I'm just flying by the seat of my pants over here, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, all right. So here's a smart website for you for personal financial planning. How satisfied are the customers of your prospective insurance company? The National Association of Insurance Commissioners site, NAIC.org/CIS, lets you see how many consumer complaints have been filed against each company. Once again, that's NAIC.org/CIS, National Association of Insurance Commissioners site. And it lets you see how many consumer complaints have been filed against each company. Yeah, and so that's all free. That's just, so it's just me helping out you, the listener, doing what I do. Building goodwill across the land, across Utopia. How do you find all of this information? Luckily, private rating agencies have done much of the work for you. These agencies use publicly available financial data from insurance companies to analyze their debt structure, pricing practices, and management strategies in an effort to assess their financial stability. The purpose is to evaluate the insurance company's ability to pay future claims made by policyholders, known as claims paying ability. In most cases, insurance firms pay ratings agencies a fee for this rating service. The ratings agencies then give each insurance firm a grade based on their analysis of the firm's financial data. Okay, the three biggest ratings agencies include AM Best Company, Moody's Investors Service, and Standard & Poor's Corporation, S&P. Two smaller but growing rating agencies are Fitch and Weiss Ratings, Inc. Weiss does not charge a fee to the insurance firms it examines. Okay, Exhibit 1, let's see here. I think I'm going to be putting this Exhibit 1 in the, if you're listening to this on Blog Talk Radio, you'll be able to see this Exhibit 1. I'm talking about those of you who are checking this out on YouTube. I have a lot of cool exhibits and charts and graphs I put together when I'm talking about business and economics and finance. I think they're pretty. I like to, make them nice, colorful, pretty to look at as well. So I don't know. They say you're not supposed to do that in the business world, but I think you're supposed to make them boring, black and white, blah blah blah. But I don't know, man. Make them as simple as possible. Not too eye-catching, but hey, you know what? When I'm making my little charts and graphs, my exhibits and my tables, I'm just an artistic guy. I'm a creative guy. So that comes out in my tables and exhibits and stuff. So anyway, all right, we got Exhibit 1, Major Insurance Rating Agencies. Once again, if you want to see this, those of you who are catching this on YouTube, you could just go to my podcast, my Blog Talk Radio site, which is blogtalkradio.com/ Charles Lamson. blogtalkradio.com. I guess I'll be putting a link down there in the show description as well. So, but anyway, you go there and they have a little slideshow player. I guess I don't know. I guess I could be. I don't know. I could be showing it. Showing them. I could be showing them on the if I wasn't so lazy. I guess I could be putting this stuff on my YouTube clips as well. I don't know. Maybe I'll get around to it. Maybe I won't. But hey, I'm going to describe it right now. Major insurance rating agencies. Okay, you got the three biggest insurance rating agencies. Okay, I already kind of discussed that. This just kind of gives their mailing addresses and contact information. Email addresses, phone numbers. Okay, so. All right, so now we got, smart. Here's another smart website you can go to, though. You got AM Best site. It's www.ambest.com. ambest.com offers more than insurance company ratings. The site always has the latest insurance industry news and trends, and insurance products guide, and links to state insurance regulatory agencies. Okay, let's see here. Each rating agency uses its own grading system. When looking at these ratings, however, keep several things in mind. With the exception of Moody's and Weiss, the ratings agencies will not publish a firm's rating if the insurer requests that it be withheld. Obviously, an insurance firm receiving a low rating is more likely to suppress publication, something that should be viewed as a clear signal that it is an insurance company to avoid. Also, remember that a high rating does not ensure lasting financial stability. Even highly rated insurance firms can quickly encounter financial difficulties. In fact, in a recent report, AM Best noted that fewer life insurers are receiving top ratings. It is a good idea, therefore, to check the ratings of your insurance carrier periodically, even after you have purchased a policy. Okay, what's going on here? Most experts agree that it is wise to purchase life insurance only from insurance companies that are assigned ratings. Ooh, look at it. By at least two of the major rating agencies and are consistently rated in the top 2 or 3 categories. Say AAA, AA1, or AA2 by Moody's, by each of the major agencies from which they received ratings. Financial routine. Watch out for unethical sales practices. Okay. Although most insurance agencies are helpful and professional, some may try to build their commissions with unethical sales practices. Here are 4 warning signs to watch for. 1. Suggestions to replace an existing policy that already has a large cash value with a new policy. 2. Promises that premiums will vanish in just 3 or 4 years. 3. Unrealistically high interest rate used to demonstrate how a policy value will grow. 4. Pressure to borrow from a whole life policy to buy a variable life annuity. Moving on. Oh, that's right. I forgot. I can probably just show you guys. Yeah. I can go ahead and I can do it I can do it this way. Hey, all right. Let's see. All right, let's see here. Coming up, that's right. I forgot all about this. I can go here. Okay. Oh, open with the slide media player. No, shoot. Yeah, that's right. Come on, baby. It's open already. Oh, all right. Well, heck. Okay. Well, let's see. Oh, all right. Well, okay. All right. Now, check this out. Guess you're not gonna be. Guess you can't really read it that good. But let's see. I don't know. Maybe no. Well, that's right. It's gonna show it backwards. Okay. I wasn't as smart as I thought. But anyway, I guess I'll somehow try to work these into the video and editing. But maybe I will. Maybe I won't. Like I said, if you want to check out the blog, it's all there on the blog as well. So just go to charleslamson.blogspot.com, the greatest blog of all time. Okay, let's see here. Okay, now, how to choose a financial insurance plan. All right. Give me a drink of water here. Oop. Okay, now, how to choose a health insurance plan. Oh, got it. Oh, So, you must choose one or more plans to provide coverage for you and your dependents. If you are employed, first review the various health insurance plans your company offers. Um, okay. If you can't get coverage from an employer, get plan descriptions and policy costs from several providers, including a group plan from a professional or trade organization. Then take your time and carefully read the plan materials to understand exactly what is covered and at what cost. Next, add up what you have spent on medical costs over the past few years and what you might expect to spend in the future, so you can see what your costs would be under various plans. Okay, so how do you find health insurance if you have just graduated from college, don't yet have a job, and can no longer be covered by your parents' policy? Or maybe you are between jobs or need time to search out the best policy, but do not want to be without protection. You will have to ask yourself some difficult questions to decide whether you want an indemnity or a managed care plan, and then to choose that particular plan. Okay, the particular plan. How important is cost? Is cost compared with having freedom of choice? You may have to pay more to stay with your current doctor if he or she is not part of a managed care plan you are considering. Also, you have to decide if you can live with the managed care plan's approach to healthcare. Will you be reimbursed if you choose a managed care plan and want to see an out of network provider? For most people, the managed care route is cheaper, even if you visit a doctor only once a year, because of indemnity plan reasonable charge provisions. What type of coverage do you need? Everyone has different needs. One person may want a plan with good maternity and pediatric care, whereas another wants outpatient mental health benefits. Make sure the plans you consider offer what you want. What you want. How good is the managed care network? Look at the participating doctors and hospitals to see how many of your providers are part of the plan. Check out the credentials of participating providers. A good sign is accreditation from the National Committee for Quality Assurance, the NCQA. Are the providers' locations convenient for you? What preventive medical programs does it provide? Has membership grown? Talk to friends and associates to see what their experiences have been with the plan. How old are you and how is your health? Many financial advisors recommend buying the lowest cost plan, which may be an indemnity plan with a high deductible if you are young and healthy. Once you have considered all of the coverage and resources that are available to you, consider where gaps in your health insurance coverage potentially lie and how best to fill them. Doing this requires an understanding of the features, policy provisions, and coverage provided by various insurance carriers and policies. Okay, here's another smart website for you. What grade did your health plan get on its quality report card this year? The National Committee on Quality Assurance, the NCQA, can tell you. That's right, at ncqa.org. It's ncqa.org. What you want? What you want? Now I got Beastie Boys songs stuck in my head. Alright. Okay, long-term healthcare insurance provisions and costs. Whether you purchase long-term care insurance as an individual or through an employer-sponsored plan, it is important to understand what you are buying. Substantial variation exists between products, so you must be especially careful to evaluate the provisions of each policy. Policy provisions are important factors in determining the premium for each policy. Let's take a closer look at the most important policy provisions to consider in purchasing long-term care insurance. All right, we got type of care. Some long-term care policies offer benefits only for nursing home care, whereas others pay only for services in the insured's home, such as skilled or unskilled nursing care, physical therapy, homemakers, and home health aides. Because you cannot easily predict whether a person might need to be in a nursing home, most financial planners recommend policies that cover both. Many of these policies focus on nursing home care, and any expenses for health care in the insured home are covered in a rider. A rider being a provision of an insurance policy that adds to or amends the coverage or terms to the basic policy. Okay, so many policies also cover assisted living, adult daycare, and other community care programs, alternative care, and respite care for the caregiver. Eligibility requirements. Some very important provisions determine whether the insured will receive payment for claims. These are known as gatekeeper provisions. The most liberal policies state that the insured will qualify for benefits as long as his or her physician orders the care. A common and much more restrictive provision pays only for long-term care that is medically necessary due to sickness or injury. One common gatekeeper provision requires the insured's ability to perform a given number of activities of daily living, ADLs, such as bathing, dressing, or eating. Some policies also provide care for cognitive impairment or when medically necessary and prescribed by the patient's physician. In the case of an Alzheimer's patient who remains physically healthy, inclusion of cognitive abilities as ADLs would be extremely important. Newer policies no longer require a certain period of nursing home care before covering home health care services. Services covered. Most policies today cover several levels of service in state licensed nursing homes, specifically skilled, intermediate, and custodial care. Skilled care is needed when a patient requires constant attention from a medical professional, such as a physician or a registered nurse. Intermediate care is provided when the patient needs medical attention or supervision, but not the constant attention of a medical professional. Custodial care provides assistance in the normal activities of daily living, but no medical attention or supervision. A physician or nurse may be on call, however. Most long-term care policies also cover home care services, such as skilled or unskilled nursing care, physical therapy, homemakers, and home health aides provided by state-licensed or Medicare-certified home health agencies. Newer policies no longer require a certain period of nursing home care before covering home health care services. All right. So, daily benefits. Long-term care policies reimburse the insured for services incurred up to a daily maximum for nursing home care policies. The daily maximums generally range from $50 to $300 depending on the amount of premium the insured is willing to pay. For combination nursing home and home care policies, the maximum home care benefit is normally half the nursing home maximum. Then you got benefit duration. The maximum duration of benefits ranges from 1 year to the insured's lifetime. Benefit duration. Lifetime. Lifetime coverage is very expensive, however. The consumer should realize that the average stay in a nursing home is now about 2.5 years. Oh, that's 2005 number. I don't know. Too lazy to go look up the number right now, even though I could do it right now on Google. Well, I guess I should. Okay. Just out of curiosity. Okay. What is the average stay in a nursing home? Let's ask Google. Let's see if Google knows. Okay, this was a 2005 number. It said 2.5 years. Let's see if that changed. That was 2005. Okay, let's see if Google knows the answer. This will be interesting. This will be interesting to see. Okay, let's see. Google. What is the average stay? What is it? Okay. What is it? The average? Oh, shoot. Where the heck was that? Darn it. Okay, yeah. Average stay in a nursing home. Okay, average stay. Oops. Oh, shoot, man. I guess Google must have heard me. The average stay in a nursing home is 835 days. Shoot, man, what is that? 835 divided by 365. Let's see. Where are they? Okay, look. All right. We got 835, 35 divided by 365 equals 2.2. I guess it's 2.29. What did this say it was? 2.2. What is that? 2.2. I didn't get hardly any sleep last night, so bear with me here. What was that? Okay, that was 2.29, and now, and this says 2.5. Okay, so it's creeped down a little bit. The average stay in a nursing home has actually creeped down a little bit. That actually makes sense from what I hear. So that was a 2005 number. The numbers actually come down a little bit. And that makes sense because, I heard that, there's been a big push lately to keep people like me, disabled adults, and the elderly, to keep them in a community setting. I'm actually going into business in that area, starting a business, home care business, and elderly transportation. Those of you who are regular readers of the blog, so it's kind of an exciting thing. It's just, of course, to get Medicaid money though.
90 seconds.
Oh shoot, man, that's the end of the big show. I want to thank you all for tuning in. I hope things didn't get too crazy. I want to thank all the YouTuber people for tuning in as well. And so, anyway, you guys will definitely want to tune into the next podcast. It's going to be more working out and more talking about personal financial planning, and we're going to channel Alfred Marshall's spirit again for the first half. We're going to do a seance, like the creepy elites Alex Jones was talking about. Okay, but anyway, end of the big show. Thank you all for tuning in. You all have a great day. And you too, people.